Hello, everybody. Hi. My name is Walsh Donnelly, and I'm coming to you live tonight from my home here in Castlebar, County Mayo. I hope that you can hear me and that you can see me. There's a comment thing on YouTube that you can put in comments just to let me know that I'm not speaking to myself, that there's a few other people watching. Million thanks to Roz and to Simon, first of all, for setting up the holding cell. I think it's a brilliant idea, and I'm delighted that they have allowed me to be part of it. I think writers as a whole, one of the reasons we write is because it's our way of connecting with the world, whether that's through the spoken word or through the page. And as anybody who knows me knows that I love speaking, I love reading my poetry. So it's brilliant to have this opportunity to do this tonight. So I'm going to read some poems from my chapbook, The Woman with an Owl Tattoo, and I'm also going to read a few different poems that I wrote recently enough. And the first poem I want to start off with is a poem from my son, Brian. He's doing his Leaving Cert this year, so I'm dedicating this poem to him and to all the students doing their Leaving Cert whenever that is going to happen. It's stressful enough doing the Leaving Cert, but having to do it under the current situation is even more difficult. So, and thanks to Brian for helping me with the technology tonight as well. So I wrote this poem last summer. It was the day Brian's had his first part-time job, and it made me realize just how quick he's grown up, and that there will come a time in the not too distant future when he will no longer be living with me here in Castlebar, and that's the way it should be. So this is called Wrench, and it's for Brian. I sit at the kitchen table. Behind me, a photo hangs on the wall of my son sitting cross-legged, Bob the Builder hat on his head, yellow plastic wrench in his hand. I sip my tea, watch him tie the laces of his new steel-capped work boots, slip his hands into a man's high-vis vest, pick up his new toolbox full of metal wrenches. I stop myself from taking his photo like I did when he pranced around the kitchen in his new school tie, aged 4. When we arrive at the workshop, he takes a moment, then opens the car door. I offer to go in with him. Ma'am! I watch him stride away. Notice for the first time he has the gait of a boy, merging into man. At the end of the day, he smells of machine oil. I eavesdrop on his conversation with his dad, tells him he needs a 1/4-inch socket set. But I still hear the 4-year-old jabbering on about his new teacher and the playground. Bob the Builder hat on his head, yellow plastic wrench in his hand. So that's for Brian. So I'm going to read now a few poems from my chapbook for those of you who don't know. Hi, Francis, I can see you there, and Roz, hi, how are things? This poem is the first poem in my chapbook, The One with an Owl Tattoo. And it's actually, I've never read it to an audience before. This is the first time, so it's the premiere. It's a poem I wrote 3 years ago, and I wrote it when I had started writing poetry, and I was exploring, where my writing came from, and how I came to start writing, and the influences on my writing as I was growing up. Guide to becoming a writer. Be the first to scramble out of Mam's room. Play cowboys and Indians with your brothers. Dump Barbie. Be left-handed. Pretend to write with your other hand in school. Lefties are evil, according to Sister Concepta. Become addicted to Famous Five. Reading their stories is much more exciting than playing with Snotty Nose Neve's gang. Listen to All by Myself on your Walkman until the tape breaks. Fantasize about your latest crush drawing rings around your nipples. Get 6 A's in your Leaving Cert. Pursue the degree your teacher tells you will get you a pensionable job. Fall in love for the first time. Get dumped. Consider walking across O'Connell Street on a foggy morning without the little green man. Have a mid-20s crisis, chuck the well-paid job, backpack around the world. Keep a travel diary. Don't ever let your mother or daughter read it. Race towards being settled in your 30s. Get promoted at work. Meet your soulmate. Realise later there's no such thing. Get married, pregnant, give birth. Enjoy being a happy family for the next 5 minutes. Leave him. Make up, go back. Repeat twice. Separate. Get your own car, house, and life. Go see a therapist. When she tells you to start writing, just do it. Your sessions will give you enough meat for a memoir that will never get published. Enjoy the benefits of being single. Switch on the night in the middle of the night and write without anybody to interrupt. Acquire chronic illness. Endure the pain it inflicts. Hold your breath as smog blinds and chokes. Stop writing. Think of your children when life becomes unbearable. You'll never become a real writer if you jump into the river. Convince yourself the world needs your poems. Gobble the antidepressants. Start writing again. So, the next poem I'm going to read in the chapbook doesn't need much of an introduction, really. It's called History of My Sexual Encounters, and I'm going to dedicate this to Kevin Higgins and Susan. Kevin is cocooning at the moment in Galway, and he was very supportive of me, especially when I started writing poetry. And this poem I wrote as a consequence of a prompt he gave us on his online writing workshop. So I'm blaming Kevin for this one. Anyway, here it is, History of My Sexual Encounters. And there's a disclaimer on this one. All penises in this poem are fictitious. Any resemblance to real penises, dying or dead, is purely coincidental. A Bristol boy ripped my hymen, penis like a twister ice lolly. Always melted too quickly. Never quite filled me. The Aussie naval officer, penis as long and bent as the steel arches of Sydney Harbour Bridge. I jumped before he stood to salute. The bushman at Kakadu, penis tasted like a kangaroo steak. Said he hates when the Sheilas don't come. Takes a bit longer than 5 minutes, bucko. The dog I met in Singapore, penis slick as tiger beer easing down a parched throat. He wanted me to go down, south on a boat to Darwin. I flew north to Kathmandu. Finally, the Wexford wanker held his penis as if it were a fishing rod. Caught my clitoris, reeled me in. Took me 7 years to escape his hook. And in stark contrast to that poem, the next poem I'm going to read is my favourite poem in the chapbook. It's called hEireann, and it's all about the joy of making love with a woman. And I read this at an event before Christmas, and one of the women afterwards came up to me in the audience. She said, "Oh, shit, that poem makes me want to have sex with a woman." And she said, "I'm serious." So that was, in my opinion, my mission accomplished. So I actually wrote it about a couple of months after I first had sex with a woman was when I wrote it. So hence the joyfulness in it. Here it is, hEireann. To die, not having known the frenzy of making love with a woman, is to live without ever jumping over the bar of your crib. How could you not want to watch a woman fling her underwear on your bedroom floor, present you with soft skin for your nails and teeth to score like blades on dough? How could you not want to feel your edges slip into her hollows like a spoon folding flour into cake batter? How could you not want to hear her whimper crescendo to a jungle roar while your fingers move inside her? How could you not want a denouement to your play, and secret stories leak onto ivory sheets, then tease tongues and start the sequel? How could you not want to drag a woman to bed at 7 on a Saturday evening, rise at 2 on Sunday afternoon, sleep deprived and smelling like a marathon runner? race outside to tackle weedy flower beds, gleeful that soil will not rest in your clipped fingernails. So, the next poem I want to read is called Metamorphosis, and it was inspired by the short story by Franz Kafka of the same name. I'm sure most of you watching know that story. And I often wondered what would it be like to wake up like the protagonist in that story and find yourself in a huge, ugly type insect body and the whole shame of that. So that's what I wanted to use in this poem to talk about shame, and in particular my own shame in my coming out journey, but also to talk about how love can heal and how love can help you overcome shame. So here it is, Metamorphosis after Franz Kafka. I lie in her arms, her breasts pressed against my back. She doesn't see the demon pest in me, its reddish brown shell, insect head, and large black eyes. She doesn't feel its wax-coated exoskeleton or the claws attached to my legs. I maneuver myself out of bed, into the bathroom, into the shower. Boiling water lashes my vermin armor. I cry cockroach tears. Stiff wings dissolve. Antenna swirl down the drain. 6 spindly legs become 2 again. Thank you. Okay. Hi, Simon. Great reading. That's good to know. I'm glad someone is watching. Where am I? Okay. The next poem is called Being in Love. And I wrote this about a month after falling in love for the first time with a woman. And falling in love in your 50s with anybody can be quite different than falling in love when you're, say, in your 20s. But falling in love in your 50s with a woman, it's very different than my previous experience, which was in my 20s, and it was with a man. So it was all that was going through my head when I started to write this poem, just the complexities, I suppose, of love, modern day love. Being in love at 50 plucks me from death row. Hands expunge the curdled cream and bitter fruit in my body. Our medley of skin and bones sink into a bowl of eaten mess. Being in love at 50 makes me wonder if Eris will crumble like Wensleydale cheese, or taste like blue Stilton after a year or two, or if it can be transformed into the perfect souffle. Being in love at 50 makes me sad. My daughter's image of me creases, feels like she's lost Santa all over again. Has to make room for someone else to sit beside her in my heart. Being in love at 50 makes me grin. My shopping bag contains a birthday card and polyester shirt for my daughter to give to her father. Lying on top, a cerise lace bra for my lover. That actually did happen. I actually was coming out with Duns with exactly those things in my shopping bag. I thought, geez, this would be a great idea for a poem. So I went home and wrote the poem. Oh dear. Okay, being in love. And the next one, I'm going to read a couple of ones that are not in the chapbook. That's the chapbook done for the moment. You can actually buy that on my website, walshdonnelly.com, if you feel inclined to do so. The next one is one I wrote a couple of weeks back. I wrote it the week leading up to Mother's Day. And as you all know, that was at the beginning of our restrictions and our limited movement. And I wrote it for my mother. I live in Mayo. My parents live in Carlow. They're both cocooning at the moment because they're over 75 and they have underlying health conditions. So I don't know when I'm going to see them again. I haven't seen them since Christmas. I don't know when I'll see them again. It's not a case I can just hop in the car and go down and stand in the front garden and say hi. It's a bit of a drive to do that. So this poem is for Mam. And as I said, I wrote it just a week before Mother's Day, and it encapsulated all I was feeling. And I also want to dedicate this to all parents and all grandparents, because there's so many parents and grandparents out there who are separated from their children and grandchildren, and it is difficult. So here it is, Mother's Day 2020. I won't walk in your front door, say hello, sit by the stove, listen to timber crackle, and simply be with you. I remember the last cup of tea and dinner you prepared for me. I remember the last time I hugged the bones of you, felt your warmth, saw the look of love in your eyes. I don't know when I can be with you again. Weeks, months. Our phone calls have become even more precious. All I want to do is drive home, stand in the front lawn, look through the kitchen window and watch you smile and wave. All I can do is go into my own garden, release the love in my heart, watch it float towards the sky, and hope some divine creature will bring it home to you. Today is a Mother's Day like no other. So that's for my mum. And I'm going to read two poems now. I wrote in the last year, and I'm at that stage in life now where my body is taking on its own mind and is going through the menopause and is assaulting me with various symptoms. That might be too much information for some of you, but anyway, bear with me. So I'm reading two poems that talk about what it's like to live in a menopausal body. It's not all bad. The first one is called My Menopausal Room, and I want to dedicate this to two very, very special people, and they're Catherine and Claire. I'm sure you're watching. And this time last year, the three of us had a lovely writers retreat type thing in Catherine's house, and she'd cook lovely food, and it's in Cong's, lovely scenery and loads of dogs, and it was a brilliant day. And I wrote this, it was a prompt that Catherine gave us, and I wrote this poem from her prompt. So I want to dedicate this to Catherine and Claire. Love you guys, loads. My Menopausal Room. Hairdresser empties tubes into a black bowl, stirs a mixture of what looks like day-old blood. 366 he calls the dye. He pastes my greying hair. Doesn't take long to cover. 30 minutes of flicking through image, hello, and good housekeeping. And I'm scarlet again. Gynecologist puts my feet in steel stirrups, tells me to spread my legs, covers his hands with latex gloves, grabs a speculum, tells me to cough, and inserts. When he withdraws, I know what he has to say before he opens his mouth. And I wish there was a colour like 366 that would turn my shrunken womb scarlet again. And the next one is one that I wrote. I was messing around, having a bit of fun, and I wrote this totally in jest. I hope that you do find it as humorous as I did when I was writing it. Sometimes people tell me my poetry shocks them. I don't know why, but they do. I certainly don't write to shock anybody. I just write whatever's inside. So, and this one is purely just a bit of fun. It's called My Menopausal Vagina. My menopausal vagina is the village's oldest pub. Doors wide open. She ignores medical experts who call closing time. She doesn't miss the sex hormones that disappeared with dusk. She's still quite a capable host, and her parties never run dry. She doesn't feel like a forgotten World War I trench full of sludge. Prefers to think of herself as an estuary. Kayakers, windsurfers, and paddlers still want to explore. She delights in their enjoyment of her brackish water that leaves a salty taste on the tongue. My vagina is not a posy that will welcome a man's nose. She's ragweed, not easy to contain, liable to poison mules and asses stupid enough to wander into her pastures for a munch, ignoring the women-only sign she's erected at her entrance. Now, that doesn't make a smile. I don't know what will. And I'm just going to read one more God, I'm nearly 20 minutes on. I'm only going to read one more small one. And the reason why I'm reading this is because it's very relevant to today. About 6 months ago, I started to explore spirituality, and I'm writing a lot of poems at the moment about spirituality, which is quite a departure from my usual type of poems that I write. And I wrote this in January, and it's kind of a bit prophetic, should I say. But it's very relevant to today. So it's only 4 lines, and it's called Salvation. I want to keep the whole world safe, but all I can do is pray. The gods want to keep the whole world safe, but all they can do is love. So thank you so much, everybody, for reading. I really enjoyed doing my thing, and hope you enjoyed listening to me and watching me. Thanks again to Roz and Simon for this opportunity, and I hope everybody watches more of the Holding Cell series, because there's some really, really good writers, and I'm just privileged that I got to be one of them. So until we meet again, stay safe, look after yourselves. God bless. Bye bye.